Hello, welcome to this presentation. In this presentation, we are going to see an application of the command design pattern. The goals for this presentation is to see the command design pattern in action and see a specific framework of Pharo that we use to implement a more complex command design pattern. Let's start with this example. Well, we have Commander. Commander is a framework of Pharo that allows us to create actions and commands for the user, for our application. It can produce toolbars and menus, and it has the ability to show our actions in the UI, in the user interface. But this user interface is performed in a way that is decoupled from the command itself. It's using decorators. This is a good example of combining two or more design patterns to get a better solution. As we can see, we will represent, as it says in command, our operations with objects. In this case, we are going to create a new object of the class add contact. In this simple example where we have a phone book, we are going to create two operations where we can add a new contact or remove it. And basically what we are going to do is create a new command of this class. We are going to have a class for each of these commands, and we are going to create it in a given context. In this case, we are going to create it in the context of the presenter. The presenter, basically, you can see it as the context of the whole window with the information inside, with the widgets and the information that it contains. Once we have the object, we can directly execute it, but this way of using is not normally what we are going to do. We are not going to create the object and directly execute it, but we are going to create the command and give it to the framework to execute it when the user clicks on the given option in the menu. This execute is delayed from the creation of the command. We can see here a class diagram of how Commander is structured. We have a common abstract class for all our commands that has the common behavior, and so we can reuse the behavior of it. All the commands can understand a class method to create them, call it for context, that receive the context of execution. It's important to see the API exposed by the abstract superclass. In this case, we have a method to execute that is basically what we have in all command design pattern, but also we can see that it has the responsibility to know if it can be executed in a given context. For example, in the previous example, we cannot remove the element from the phone book if there is no one that is selected. So the command knows that is only applicable when there is a valid selection. Then we have here a subclass, a concrete subclass that we are going to create to represent our command. Also, there is a useful helper class that allows us to create easy commands from blocks directly, passing two blocks, one block that is the block that will be executed when this command is executed, and other block that will be evaluated when we ask the operation if it can be executed in the given context. Usually, this is done for easy creating commands, but normally what we want to do is to create our commands as subclasses of CM command, because like that we can create our objects and add instance variables and add the state required for performing the action. Also, we can see that we have two parts in this diagram. On the left, we have all the elements that are proper to the command, and on the right, we have a hierarchy of decorators that allows us to add more functionality to the previous command. For example, adding the ability to have an icon or a shortcut key when these commands are exposed in a menu or in a toolbar. Like this, we can see the two responsibilities that we can have in Commander and how we can compose two different design patterns to get to a complex solution, to solve a complex problem, not only to have a complex solution. In this case, let's see our add contact command, what it will do. Well, one of the properties that we have in Commander is that we want to have that all the commands can describe themselves. So each of them will have a name and a description. This information is important to build the UI so the user knows what operations are there and how to use them and what they are doing. And this is provided by the framework. Each of them will just give the name and the description, and the framework will create the required element in the user interface. For example, that each of the menu options will have a describing text saying what it's doing and what are the icon or the shortcut if it has. As we can see, add contact command will have its execute method, that is what it's doing, and it will perform the action on the target object, in this case on the contact book, on the phone book. One important thing about Commander is that we can extend it to have specific requirements for each of the commands. We can have commands, in this case, in this little example, we have commands that has been extended to be part of spec. Spec is our framework to implement the applications in top of Pharo, to implement the user interface of applications, and we can extend the commands in a way, just extending and adding a new class that when we implement applications in spec, they will instantiate, will create classes extending from st command. As we see here the extensibility of this solution and how we can extend the command design pattern just adding new subclasses to the abstract or to the concrete command class. The same happens with the decorator part. We can start adding a new decorator that will take one of the commands and will wrap it and will be able to create the buttons in the toolbar. Like this, we can see that the original framework does not know about the existence of spec, but this is added through the points of extensions that it has. Now we can see that we have added to command a way to create it as an spec command, and we are going to do that taking exactly the existing command and just decorating them with sp command. And in this case, it will add the idea of having an icon and having a shortcut to execute it. This is an interesting way of extending the commands that we have with new functionality, adding, in this case, a default icon and a default shortcut. Let's see how we implement one of these commands with all the flavors. Well, basically, we do exactly the same because the extension is transparent to it, and the command still only know how to execute in a given context. They have a really simple execute command. That is what we want to have. A simple and well-distributed responsibility. Coming back from all these ideas, we can say that commands are a first-class action. Remember that we want to take our actions and create objects that represent them. So we can manipulate them and delay their execution and perform undo, replay, optimization, show them in a list, or render them through the UI. The command are elements in our system, and we want to handle them. This is important also that you check the lecture about the command design pattern to see the consequences of using it and when we want and when we don't want to use it.